Welcome to the Power of Connection. I am Bobby Umar, five-time TEDx speaker, and this is where we make influence human again. One idea, one conversation, one thing you can use. Let's get into it.
All right, hey everybody, Bobby right here, and excited to have a conversation with you guys about how to land a TEDx talk. It's a workshop, it's free, and I want to, have you be engaged by sharing knowledge and commenting in the comment box here. Feel free to network with one another as well. I'm going to take you through a PowerPoint and help you along there. Now, because I'm hosting the event, um, I might be distracted by people coming in because there's a lot of people who registered that they might just pop in. So just an FYI on that. So with that, let me just load up the slides right now and we'll get going. And thanks so much for coming. Before we start, maybe why don't you share in the chat box here, what is the one thing you're trying to learn today? Like, what's the one thing you're hoping to get out of today? Something specific. I'd love to hear what that is. Oops. Okay. All right. Let's see what you got here in the chat box. Okay, so we have, all right, topic focus, the process, how to apply. Okay, sure. Okay, good, good, good. How to gain reputation. Okay, good, good. Some good stuff here. All right, all right. So, all right. Let's get going. So, how to land your first TEDx talk. So, again, and the reason why, as a speaker, I've been speaking for a long time. So, I'll give you my little pitch about who I am. Bobby Umar, five-time TEDx speaker, three-time TEDx invite decliner. For the last 20 years, I've delivered 1,000 keynotes of workshop across 4 continents. Initially around soft skill leadership, like networking and building relationships. But then I became known as somebody around for TEDx, for digital content, thought leadership, LinkedIn, Twitter, and pretty soon I started talking about a lot of things. So, but again, part of speaking is about influencing, and that's how you impact people, and that's how you change lives. So, how can we use the knowledge today? Well, remember, every single one of you has a story and a struggle, and a lot of people out there need help. So, you willing to share your story and share your challenges or the things you've learned in your life, whether it's personal or professional, it's going to help a lot of people. And that's why TEDx really exists. And remember, though, the knowledge does not equal results. You got to start moving. So, to ask yourself the question, what would I do if I weren't afraid and then go do it? Because I'm not, look, one of the biggest challenges with TEDx is mindset. But if we can get over the mindset and realize that a 10-year-old is on a TEDx talk, then you can go out there and do one too. It's not based on status, it's not based on achievement, it's not based on success. It's based on the idea and the story and the topic. That's what it is. So, who is this kind of training for today? And again, I should mention, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to put the question in the chat box, or you can put your hand up with the things there in Zoom. And if you do, then I'll answer it even in the middle. You don't have to wait for me to finish the presentation. Okay. So this is for you if you're a driven business leader, entrepreneur, executive, or learner. You want to be known as someone who's a good storyteller, strong ideas, and help people. You want to enhance your presence and memorability online in person. You want to create breakthroughs in your career growth or transition, share expertise with the world and change lives. You want to get more opportunities to speak, get paid more, do media interviews, land book deals, get more leads, et cetera, et cetera. That's who it's for. Is this you? If so, give me a thumbs up. I'd like to understand that because, and if you're not, I'm curious what part you don't fit in here. And my promise to you today, guys, is I'm going to give you all the inside strategy and tactics I can to help you land your first TEDx talk. Now, why am I doing this? Well, let's start with the why. My why is this. There are lost, stuck, or unfulfilled leaders everywhere. What I mean by that is everywhere I go, I meet people who feel lost in their jobs, stuck in their career, or unfulfilled in their work. And so everything I do from all my training, coaching, and speaking is about helping people, navigate that. A little bit about myself. I already mentioned this, tons of talks. I'm an Inc. Magazine Top 100 alongside Bernie Brown, Richard Branson, and John C. Maxwell. I'm also LinkedIn Top Voice. And I have a lot of written books. I've got a lot of social media following. Great. And my career path has been kind of diverse. I started as an engineer, then I ran a musical theater company. Then I got into brand marketing after my MBA, and then I started my business. So I've done a lot of stuff in performing arts, as well as in marketing and business. and in engineering problem solving. What's the agenda for today? I'll talk briefly about my story, why TEDx matters. I'm going to talk about your story, where to start on the process. We're going to talk about the culture of TED and TEDx, and then we're going to talk about how to make them want you. I'll share a bit of a bonus tip there, and then of course we'll have next steps and then Q&A. Okay? So what is my story? Well, the general story was I tried engineering, I tried brand marketing, I tried teaching, I tried performing arts, and I never was able to create success at anything. And so what ended up happening was I felt lost and stuck, and I felt kind of a failure. And this is after 15 years. I had no direction. I didn't feel good at anything, even though I had several successes in my life professionally. I felt like people loved me, but my bosses never seemed to like me. And again, I mentioned the multiple careers that I had. And so I was kind of one of those jack of all trades, master of none type person. And so I consider myself a lost leader. And so, the question then becomes like, what did I do about it? Well, after my last corporate job, and I became diabetic and got sick and I needed to recover. Then my wife got sick. I had to take care of her. And during those 3, 4 months of losing my job and take care of my wife, I decided to invest in my personal brand. I did a ton of interviews, surveys, had lots of meetings. That I went through an entire process. And through that process, I found focus, clarity, and purpose. I found my value in how I help people. I found my why statement, who I serve. And pretty soon I became a speaker. And that's kind of where the 20 years have been. And it's been great to travel around the world and do all that stuff. And I do love that. So, 1,000 talks, as I already mentioned. And then, TEDx became something that I did once, then I did 4 times. Next thing you know, I did it 5 times. And pretty soon I got invited 3 more times to do it. And I said no, which I'll talk about in a moment in terms of why I do and or not do that. But let's talk about the why TEDx. TEDx is a huge thought leadership branding opportunity for yourself. It positions you as a brand. What's really important with TEDx too is you want to get that video. The video really matters. Of the 5 TEDx talks that I've done, 2 of them I didn't get a video. And I've learned my lesson from my younger days. Make sure we get a video because the marketing material for the video is fantastic. It's a chance to make the TED.com page, right? So, my friend here, Drew Dudley, he did a talk called Lollipop Leadership, 6 minutes long. And when it made the TED.com page, his entire career vector went up significantly. The exact same thing happened to Simon Sinek. I'm not sure you've seen his TEDx talk. It's on a flip chart with a grainy video. But once that made the TED.com page, his entire business launched. So that's a big chance for you to do that. Doesn't happen to everybody, but it can happen. You also get to meet a lot of other amazing speakers and delegates in there. Like I met Drew at one of the events, and it was at my first TEDx event, and that was awesome. And TEDx is designed to teach you focus, targeting storytelling with how you speak because of the way the format structure. It's different than doing a workshop. It's different than doing a keynote. So it's a kind of a unique way in which you would actually deliver a presentation for people. But to me, the ultimate benefit of TEDx is you are now positioned as an authority expert in your field. You are an expert, a consultant, a coach, a speaker, a storyteller. That branding is huge. And being a one-time TEDx speaker launched my business. I'll tell you more about that later. But being a 5-time TEDx speaker has been fantastic. But there's other benefits too. You're inspiring global audience to take action on something that you care about or are passionate about. High visibility, instant credibility. People, if you share your TEDx talk, it's irresistible because when you say, "Hey guys, I have a book. I'm trying to make the bestseller times list. You want to buy it for $35?" You're like, maybe you can send me a PDF. I don't know, But if you share a TEDx talk with someone, oh sure, I'd love to see it. Right? You connect with people, you build followers. The spirit of TED is actually quite powerful, and all of this will give you more website traffic, more leads, more opportunities, more speaking gig clients, book deals, you name it. That's why TEDx is so good. The other thing to think about, look at these people that have spoken at TEDx, right? Sir Ken Robinson, Brené Brown, Malcolm Gladwell, Susan Cain, Salman Khan, Bill Gates. The truth is, the Alumni Association branding is actually quite good. So you want to have that. You want to have that branding by association too. There's 3,000 TEDx events yearly, and it's translated into hundreds of languages. And what's interesting is this stat here, which is 172,000 TEDx talks on the YouTube channel, but only 3,800 of them were featured on TED.com. So if you are in that small percentage that gets that, it can be really, really powerful. I'm not saying you can't use the brand anyways is already pretty good, but again, getting the TED.com site is more rare and special. And I believe, and I've demonstrated this, that a TEDx is just as strong as a book or a program to get leads, speaking gigs, and meet opportunities. Because TEDx is three parts. One is you have to land the TEDx talk. Number two, you have to design and deliver an amazing TEDx talk. And then you have to leverage that TEDx talk for your brand or business. You can launch a book, but do nothing about it, and it tanks. You could also land a TEDx talk, do nothing about it, and you'll get a couple hundred views. That's not what we want. So my first TEDx talk was about the power of connection. Someone said, Bobby, what's your big idea? I'm like, I don't know. And I thought, let me think about this. And so I delivered a talk on the power of connection, how to connect deeply with people, even in a short period of time. And it's something that kind of came up from my wife. She's like, Bobby, how do you go out with people for coffee and they tell you about their entire financial lives and their intimate lives? And how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. But that's a TED talk. So let me put that together. My second one was on the power of connect questions. These happened within 7 months of each other. They happened really, really fast. The first four came in within a 2-year period. I met an Olympic gold medalist there, and I talked about the power of questions, and that was kind of my topic there. Then the third one, they asked me to host it, which I did, but I also hosted, I said, I'll host it as long as I can do my own TEDx talk. So I did both. Hosting is great, good exposure, but it's a lot of work. And so, because you have to be on the whole day, which is a little bit more challenging. And then the fourth one, I was like, okay, the fourth one, guys, this is my talk. You know what? I've done three. I want to make it on the TED.com page. I want to like deliver one. This one was a really well organized machine. And my talk was about learning to fly as a leader. And I basically created some cognitive dissonance to focus on young students and leaders on how to make a difference when they're in university and college. And I thought this was the one, man. I designed this amazing presentation where it flies into the presentation. You can see little bits of it there. Just kind of cool. But I made one critical error in my presentation, which denied me the TED.com opportunity. Anyone know what it is? You can either unmic or you can put in the chat what you think I screwed up here. Yeah, no one knows. This is the interactive portion, guys. I used a copyrighted image. Which one, Eric? That's right. The university here, the school, the grass, this guy here. Who is that guy? Is that Ben Stiller? I don't know. That's right. I used Super Grover. And because using Super Grover Sesame Street, that was a bad move. Okay? So I learned my lesson. Fifth TEDx talk came my way. Someone said, hey, Bobby, the topic's power of connection. I'm like, hey, that's my hashtag. I should pitch this one. So I went over there in the office and I pitched this with a video in 3.5 minutes. And the next day they called me and said, we want you. And this is the talk that I did several years later in 2000, I think 18 it was. That was my fifth TEDx talk. And this is the one that made the TED.com site. So I was very happy about that, which is kind of exciting. So let's get right into this in terms of talking about the challenges, right? So what would you say are your biggest challenges for landing your first TEDx talk? I'm curious to know what you think about that. Like, what are some of those things? You can either put in the chat box, or you can actually, on mic and tell me here too. I'd love to hear from you guys. Anybody share, what are your challenges for landing a TEDx talk? All right, looks like you guys are prepared. That's awesome. Okay, good. Okay. Uncertainty of my topic is good. Learning how to apply, garnering interest. Okay, I applied a lot, but didn't hear back. Okay, fine. Okay. Anyone else want to share? You can share here in the Zoom if you want to. I'm ready to listen, or I'll look at the chat here. It feels the same topic being done, hard to hone in on something. Okay, fair enough. I mean, you can't look my hug TEDx talk. There's many hug topics, and it's okay to have a similar talk. Just make sure yours is the best. Is what I would say. Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's just keep going then, and see if. And again, I want to make sure that we address all things that you guys are trying to figure out here. But let me get back to the presentation part. Now, here's a big secret. You don't have to be Simon Sinek or Brandon Brown to do a TEDx talk. Everyone has a story in them. You all do. You have many stories, multiple stories. In fact, when I work with clients, we extract dozens of stories for this. And the other big secret is that, look, even 11-year-olds have delivered TED Talks, right? Why? Because again, it was about her story and her idea, and that's all it took. She designed this thing, and that's what worked for her. So you want to know how I got them? Let's get into this. So let's start with what people do wrong. What people do wrong is they have a bad idea, right? Is your idea unique enough? Do people want to hear it? Will the TEDx organizer like it? When I met with a TEDx organizer one time, and she didn't like my first pitch, but the second one she liked that one. So you never know what they're gonna like. So make sure you have a really good idea. Too holistic. So TEDx prefers ideas based in science. TED stands for TED, Technology, Entertainment, Design. So if you have a holistic idea out there about spirituality, energy, rocks, astrology, not saying it can't be done, it's just way harder. You need to have something based in evidence. Now, if you don't have something based in evidence, you can still have a personal story with a good idea that came from it. I mean, the guy who did a TEDx talk on how to tie a shoelace properly, that's a story. There's no data. He just showed you how to do it, right? And that's a great TEDx talk. Wrong audience. So if your ideas don't fit with the TEDx culture, isn't aligned with the theme, they won't take notice. Remember, you have to know your audience. You have to know what the TEDx audience is like, and that's important to understand because if you're here to land a TEDx talk so you can talk about your book, that's the wrong way to go, guys. It's not going to work for you. Okay, there's ways around that, but like I can't go selling my speaker programs. I can't go talk about my book. I can't talk about my business. But there's ways around that in terms of how you do a TEDx talk. Now, how I got 5 TEDx talk is 4 things. One is brand and thought leadership, building new leaders, strategic target networking, and curating really good ideas. So let's kind of dive into this a little bit. Let's talk about thought leadership for a second here. So here are 8 people who are known thought leaders. Can you type for me any one of their names and a word or two that describes them or what they're all about? So for example, Gary Vaynerchuk, he's the guy here. He's all about kindness and entrepreneurship and the hustle. Can you name anybody else and what are some words that describe them? Steve Jobs, think different. Yeah, that's a good one, Lydia. Okay. What else you got? Steve Jobs again, creativity. Malala, education, great. Anyone know all 8 of these people? You think you name all 8 of these people? Warren Buffett, wealth, sure. Nancy, you unmuted. Did you want to speak out something?
Oh, sorry. No.
Okay, no worries. Seth Godin, marketing. Beyonce, money, success. Purple Cow, Seth Godin. Yeah. Oprah, influence. Okay, good. I'm liking this. These are thought leaders, and they're well known, and we can describe who they are. Now, what exactly is thought leadership? Well, look, there's 3 main criteria to build yourself as a thought leader. The first one is having relationships, close friends, large, broad relationships, and followers. So, Oprah has her best friend Gail. She has some of her close friends. She has her acquaintances, and then she has all her followers. Number 2, innovate new and generate awesome ideas and content. That's about being, and actually, you know what? Let me tell you about this. That first part's about influence, right? But you can be an influencer, but not a thought leader, because the second part is you also have to create new ideas and content. That's called subject matter expertise. And there are subject matter experts who don't have much influence. And there are some influencers who have very little subject matter expertise. We know who they are. They're usually on Instagram and TikTok. And then the third part is speaking, communication, active listening, storytelling, brand voice. So, what's happening is Oprah has her friends and followers. Warren Buffett's writing financial reports, and Gary Vee's, doing speeches. And then down below, Malala's showing up on panels and they're talking about these things. They're working on their brand voice. So if you want to build thought leadership, you have to work on all 3 of these things to really elevate who you are. And why is thought leadership so important? Well, when you are seen as the expert with a solid reputation, you have a huge network of influence, and you own the conversation, opportunities come to you because you are memorable. You have more confidence to go after opportunities, connections, customers, clients, colleagues follow you, and of course, TEDx will come to you, and it's easier to land. How do you think I got the first 4 TEDx talks? Because I was a thought leader. They came to me. I didn't pitch. They said, wow, I love your stuff, Bobby. Can you come do a talk? Absolutely, I'll do a talk. Now, Marie Forleo is a well-known thought leader. Does anyone know what she did to start off in the beginning? What did she do? She had a couple of jobs, but well, coaching is where she went. What did she do before coaching? So in the beginning, that's right. So she did a personal trainer. She also was a bartender, and then she was doing financial analyst, a stock analyst for Wall Street. Yeah, boom, you got that. And then she decided to get into coaching and build a brand. So then she built this brand, she launched the podcast, started doing videos, launched the business school, and now she's a well-known thought leader. Of course, has a TED Talk. Thought leadership leads to authority, of credibility, reach, and influence. That's why it's so important. And for me, I've been able to build thought leadership in lots of ways with lots of impressions, lots of followers, and lots of cred, which has been great. And has it helped me as a speaker, as a coach, and everything else? Absolutely. Being named among Brené Brown and Richard Branson on Inc. magazine for leadership speakers, getting the 5 TEDx talks, being named a LinkedIn top voice. These are all things that are helping my brand and helping me get clients, right? So let's talk about that for a second, because how can you 10x your brand, your profile, and thought leadership? There are things that people do. And I think is Brenda here, because I don't want to put her on the spot, but I like putting her on the spot. But if she can comment here, or maybe all you all can, I'm going to ask you right now, what are ways that people like you or businesses, brands build their brand profile and thought leadership? What are things you do to do this? Like, what do you do? I'll give you an example. I speak at events, on panels, and in media. What do you do to build your brand profile and thought leadership? Okay, so write major publications, great. So writing is good. Articles, okay. Social networking, YouTube videos, okay, good. What else do other people do? Maybe you're not doing. I'll put this over here. Podcast guest, okay, yeah. Publish nonfiction books, speak, train, advise. LinkedIn, sure. Okay, good. These are all good examples. Well, the truth is, there's only 7 things people do. Okay, number 1, networking. So you either meet people in person or meet people online, and you build your Rolodex and build your database of people you know. Number 2, content strategy. You put content out there to start conversations, demonstrate your expertise, and it leads to more conversation and connection. Number 2, you speak. You sit on a panel, you go to an event, you speak like I do at a conference, you show up on a radio show or media. You launch a book to showcase your expertise and who you are, or an article, or things like that, written stuff. You launch a program to get clients, to get testimonials, and now you're like, wow, this is the guy for doing TEDx. Like for me, my TEDx program, he's the guy. Okay, great. Paid advertising. If you got the wealth, you can buy ads and say, hey, Jeff Eddy is the best guy for smelling soup cans. If you want a soup can smeller, hire Jeff right away. And you spend $1 million, and next thing you know, he's killing it he's like the soup can smeller guy of the city, right? So paid advertising also works. But TEDx is the best one. And I'm going to tell you why it's the best. It is the best way to 10x your brand, profile, and thought leadership, whether you're 10 years old, 20, or 80, it doesn't matter. Because TEDx has the shortest amount of time invested, approximately 20 to 40 hours of time. It also has the shortest timeline, 3 to 9 months. You can get a TEDx talk and deliver it in 3 months. 3 to 9 months is the average, because most TEDx events are looking for speakers 3 to 6 months before it happens. Okay? And a content strategy, a networking strategy, a book launch strategy, a program launch strategy, they all take way longer. And it has the greatest amplification, because when you launch that TEDx talk and it comes out, it amplifies far better than the book and everything else, usually, because it's more easy to share and people get excited about it. So that's why TEDx is what I love. And TEDx includes things like stories, speaking, content, networking, branding. It's all part of the process. So to me, that's why TEDx is so great. So that was the first thing. Brand thought leadership is one of the big things. The next thing is building new leaders in coaching and volunteering. So if you actually mentor people or coach people, one of the things you can do is you'll find out that the people that you're investing in are running TEDx talks. Most TEDx talks are run by younger people. And so the first TEDx talk I did, he was someone who worked for me as an intern, and he brought me in to speak. But you can also go to a TEDx event and offer to coach people and volunteer. And now you're in that universe. The next thing you know, it leads you to getting more opportunities. So that to me is another little a trick that works quite well. Strategic and targeted networking. Targeting and networking with people who are in the TEDx universe, TEDx organizers, TEDx sponsors, TEDx coaches, event planners, other speakers, or event halls that run events, university and colleges that host TEDx events. These are all ways to help you get into the TEDx universe. So make sure you're targeting the right people. And of course, curating a good idea. Your idea is more important than your ability to speak. Although you got to speak somewhat well, but the idea matters more. You have to align with the theme of the event, ideally, something new, fresh, and different. Because you can't just say, I want to talk about sales. That's kind of generic and broad. But the guy who talked about the ninjutsu of sales and took ninja philosophy and applied it to sales, he did a TEDx talk. Okay. It's simple. Don't have to solve today. Like you can take just a simple idea, like even the guy who shook his hands and said, let's use less paper towel." That was a great idea. Very simple. And storing conversation is what really matters to TEDx people. So let me hear from you guys what your idea is. Do you have a TEDx idea in mind? I'd love to hear it. Put it in the comments, or let me know what you got. Look at the last slide. Sure. This one here. Hey, listen, if you're liking the slides, feel free to take a photo and put it on LinkedIn, man, and tag me. I love that kind of stuff. So I'm all good with that. All right, let me go back here. So what are your TEDx ideas? I want to hear what they are. You can either unmic or you can tell me here. How AI is changing work. Okay, that's very broad, Sarah. So we need to get more specific. Using human-centered design to enable team engagement and iterate your leadership. Again, I'd say that's kind of broad. We need to come up with a very specific story, idea, or epiphany moment. Deal with aging parents. Okay, that I really thought my mom, is aging and challenged. I'm challenged with that. And so I want to get into the story. Why 21st technology still? Why is 21st technology still powered by steam? Like steam engine, like steam. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, it kind of gets steam. That's interesting. All right. Anyone else? PTS prevention on first responder. No, that's great. That's a great. Jeff, tell me why you think that's not an appropriate topic.
Just what you said that it was technology engineering design.
Well, it's technology, entertainment, and design. That was the original thing. It doesn't mean that it's strictly that. I mean,
Okay.
look, I can tell you right now, the three biggest trends for TEDx talks right now are AI, climate change, and personal resilience. So to me, that whole thing of PTSD, personal resilience, fantastic, fantastic topic. Okay.
Awesome.
How to create
Thanks.
transparent. Oh, sorry, Jeff, what's that?
Said awesome. Thanks.
Okay, good. How to create transparency and trust within your team. Again, I would say that that's a very, very broad topic. And so we have to find a way to make it more specific. I think that's what's going to make it stand out as a topic. Okay, but I appreciate you sharing that. Again, the biggest challenge for people to land TED Talk is they can't come with a right, honed, specific, engaging hook topic. That's important. Sometimes it's a story that's the hook. Sometimes it's the topic that's the hook. Sometimes it's the title that's the hook. Here's a great example of a great title. Broken Bike, Unbroken Spirit. Why is that so good? Super short topic. In 2 words, they tell you the story. In 2 words, they tell you the lesson. That's pretty awesome. The stage 4 cancer story for change. Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's definitely a lot there. I think there's lots we can probably pull with that. And I think for sure we can figure that out. Okay, good. Now the hardest part of doing this is knowing your full story. Every time I work with people on personal branding or content strategy or business growth or whatever it is, they don't know their full story. It's the same with TEDx. If you don't know your full story, it's harder to actually put together a really amazing topic. That's why my model for TEDx is about life story. It's hard to identify the right topics for you, but I think all of you can create 3 TEDx topics, one based on your professional expertise, one based on your personal story, and another one based on whatever you're trying to target for your objectives or your business. Crafting that tantalizing title. That's very important. So for my 5th TEDx talk, it was about hugs. But I said, could you change a person's life in 20 seconds? And I workshopped that thing like crazy. I pulled several times on LinkedIn to get to the exact specific nuanced title that I knew would be a really good hook. And of course, the other hard part is people don't leverage their TEDx talk for their brand. You know, one of my clients got a TEDx talk and she's like, okay, well, it's coming up in like 3, 4 months. I said, great, let's start talking about it. Let's start prepping. She's like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, no, no, you have to talk about it because when the video comes out 6 months later, no one's gonna like you're gonna less people watching it. Take people on the journey, take people on the story of what you're doing, the prep, the excitement, all that kind of stuff. You can't build a community if you're bowling alone. I love that, Lydia. That's great. That's fantastic. So where to start? I'm ready. You're ready. Now what? What do we do? You want a step-by-step process? Or give me a thumbs up here. I love thumbs ups. Thank you, Jeff. All right. So I already gave you some stuff on where to start, but let me break it down for you. Number one, you want to find TEDx events near you. The easiest way to do that is to go on TED.com and look at all the TEDx events they have going on. I mean, I have my own resource and list of events all around the world, but those are proprietary for, my clients. But that's the first starting point. The second starting point is just Google. Google TEDx in your area. You'll find things. You'll find things in your state, in your country, in your province, and wherever you are. But that to me is the first stepping point. Number two, you have to determine your big new ideas. And I say ideas because I think you can create more than one. Or you can take the same story and create 2 TEDx pitches for the same story. You want to connect with organizers. So I mentioned connect with the organizer. This is another organizer I connected with. And and she brought me to her event. I didn't end up going there, but it was a good way to let her know what's going on and tell her who I was. So the organizers are the ones who are more likely to know and like and trust you, right? Now, you also have to determine which TEDx events to target. So one of the things that I tell people is that I've rejected 3 TEDx invites myself. So why did I turn them down? I even turned down an invite from my alma mater. So one of the things one of my big criteria is how organized are they? And the one from my alma mater, they were so disorganized and they had no social presence. I was like, man, this sucks. I don't want to I don't want to put all the work in a TEDx talk and like you guys do a crappy job. Plus, 2 of my TEDx talks have no video because they were disorganized and I learned my lesson. So you have to figure that out and make sure, like, how organized are they? Whereas this one, the fourth one that I did, these guys were incredibly organized. They booked me 9 months in advance, which is unheard of. And they brought me a coach and, it was just incredibly well organized. The other thing to think about is like, what are the speaker profiles? Like, do you want to be Jennifer Lawrence among Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts, right? And Bradley Cooper? Or, which is fine, because you're a star amongst other stars, so you're amongst a bunch of superstars. Or another TEDx event I did, I was the star, and everyone else were professors and students from the university or college. It's up to you. Either way is fine, and to me, as long as it's organized, you should go for it. How far are you willing to travel? Right? I mean, TEDx, they don't pay you. My friend here, she traveled all the way from Canada to Zurich because she had a friend who was there. So she pitched it and then flew out, stayed with her friend, delivered a TEDx talk because she wanted to do a TEDx talk. And that's okay. Other things to think about, right? So, have they grown as an event? Do they have social media presence? Is the target audience the right one? Like some TEDx events target just women. Some events target just young people or youth, or they target entrepreneurs only. So if that aligns your target audience, great. And then other things to consider when you apply, create a nomination plan, right? So when you nominate, you can nominate yourself. You can create a nomination team, like 3 people to nominate you, or you find a nomination buddy. Like maybe, John and Gary in this call today have networked and they say, hey, you know what? Why don't we nominate each other? That's fine. Or again, you can offer to come to speak at schools that host TEDx talks. Leverage your relationship with the organizer and partners as you're building relationships. Leverage your social media thought leadership brand to say, listen, I'm going to come in, I'm going to promote you guys. I love doing TEDx talks. And of course, the biggest thing I tell people is put together a 3 to 5 minute video when you pitch. Someone said before, I think they pitched, but they didn't get a talk. Did you have a video pitch in there? If not, you should have done one. Because the application can be quite difficult. There's a lot of questions they ask you. So you have to know how to answer these questions. I mean, we talked about one of the biggest challenges being um, not having the right idea, topic, or title. Another big challenge you mentioned, which was not knowing the process, who to apply, who to speak to, things like that. But the other big problem is what I think Cyrus said, which I applied, but I didn't get in because we don't know how to optimize the nomination, the application. You have to optimize this. And you have to answer these questions exactly the way they want to hear it. So thinking about that, what do the judges want? This topic makes no sense. And the next thing you know, they reject you. And you throw you out. Like if you that was my Statler Waldorf impression. Hope that was okay. I can only do I forget which guy that was, either Statler or Waldorf. I can't do the other guy. I can only do the one of the guys. So what do they want? So they don't want speakers, which is bad for me because I'm a professional speaker. So now it's harder for me to get a TEDx talk because I'm a professional speaker. They want teachers or presenters of an idea. That's what they want. They want your idea to align with their theme, be unique, or have a unique slant, like the ninjutsu of sales thing. So, for example, someone said, AI in the workplace. More specific, like maybe like I don't know. I'm making this AI to help with HR systems. I'm making that up, but my point is more specific, a different slant than just AI broad. AI helps your business. AI helps life. More specific. They do want high profile brand thought leaders. Why? Because you're going to promote their event and they're going to leverage your brand. You're going to be, if you're if they brought in 5-time TEDx speaker and Inc. magazine, Bob Umar to their event, maybe it's good for them. That's what they want. They also want to know whether you can clearly convey an idea. Can you walk and talk? They do like unique personalities. Maybe you're unique. Can you walk and talk? That's what the video helps. Because just from a text-based application, they don't know. That's why having content out there with you talking, people will appreciate that. And sometimes they prefer others to nominate you. I mentioned Drew Dudley earlier on. He did that TEDx talk for 6 minutes on lollipop leadership. What was interesting about his story is that he didn't apply. 12 people. He was working in a career resource center for students at a college, and his boss and all the students, they nominated 12 people nominated him. And like, wow, 12 nominations. So they brought him in, and then he killed it in 6 minutes. And now he's a global speaker all around the world. It's amazing. So how do I make them want me? And again, if you guys have questions, you put them in the chat box. I'll put them at the end. I'm happy to stop, but I do want to. I'll get through this, and then I'll even stay longer if you want to stay on. But I'll try to finish this in 10 minutes, and then I'll leave 10 minutes for Q&A. Okay. How to make them want me? Know the culture of TED, right? So what is the culture of TED and TEDx? Well, essentially, it's this. Give us the best idea of your life, share your personal story and background, dive deep into the topic, use minimal slides, which I absolutely dislike because as you can see, I'm a slide crazy person. And do it in 18 minutes with a giant clock watching you. So I can tell you when I did this talk here, there was this clock and I had 14 minutes. And this clock, was looking at me, and I was over time. And I was kind of freaking out. So I was nervous, man. I was really nervous about the talk. But you have to understand, like, you can't sell your business, you can't sell your book. You have to just get personal and talk to them and have a conversation. So some tips for this: like, you want to tell a story your way. If you're an introvert, then talk as an introvert. Don't talk like Bobby, the dynamic extrovert. Okay? It's not about you. It's about the audience and the TEDx event itself. Stick to the clock, because if you go over 18 minutes, you significantly decrease your chance of making the TED.com page. If it's not personal, it's not worthwhile. They want to know who you are. Understand the context we've already talked about. Use the tools you have. There's a really famous TED talk by Bill Gates about malaria, and he brought those mosquitoes from Africa. He said, these mosquitoes have malaria, and then he released them in the audience. There's this big gasp. Oh my God, what? And he's like, don't worry, we're immune. But imagine in a village in Africa and they're not immune and people will die. That's why we need to work on vaccines for malaria over there. That's what he did. It worked really well. So we have this thing about, knowing the culture of TED, you create the best ideas, you create the connections. But I want to talk about step 4 here, which is to follow up, be responsive, be accessible, be open and flexible. So what ends up happening is that, like, so for example, when TEDx, the 4th TEDx talk, they said, Bob, we want to bring meet our speaker coach. I didn't say, guys, I'm a motivational speaker and I've done 100 TEDx. I've done 100 talks in the last 3 years. I don't need a speaker coach. I said, sure, happy to meet them. when they send you an email and ask you for your bio headshot, or they say, congrats, you landed TEDx talk, and you don't respond for 2 weeks, do they really want you? Be accessible, be responsive. And then step 5 and step 6, I'm going to get to in a second. Before we get into the last two big ideas and the Q&A, I want to share a key point of the TEDx value, and then I'm going to share about how people typically work with me. So for when I did my first TEDx talk on March 5th, 2011, what happened? My speaker fee jumped 2.5 times. The number of speaking gigs increased that year by 40%. This is before I even did the 4. This is the first TEDx talk. I landed an agent. I started traveling around the world. And then people wanted to consult me and coach me. So then I had to create a new consulting fee from double that as well. And the long-term impact, I haven't really calculated that, but pretty immense because I got book deals, media appearances, job offers, etc. So that was actually quite huge. Now, how do people work with me? Well, they basically have all my free content on social media. They can join my membership community called TLB Club. They can do my 5-day TEDx challenge or super workshop. They can be a VIP for the challenge where they get some really cool resources and a call, or they can take my TEDx Mastery Intensive with all my resources and the guarantee in writing and things like that. So that's what people do. So these are all the things that I do. Like I'm doing the free thing today. I have the TEDx. I'm doing a free live stream in I guess 2 weeks. Then the TEDx challenge ends this month. And of course my 2 new TEDx programs that are already launched now. In fact, my weekly calls today at 4:00. And listen, helping people land TEDx talks and helping you land their dream is the greatest thing ever. When it happens and they announce it and they post it, it is the best thing in the world. I love it. And so, end of this month, my 5-day challenge is happening. If you're interested, it's going to be a great session. You can check out the QR code and see what it's all about. But that's happening end this month, and that's something that I'm pretty excited about and always love to share. So, going back to step 5 and the bonus idea. So step 5, we already talked about this. Build a huge thought leadership brand. It will help you land a TEDx talk. And also the work to build a thought leadership brand, knowing your story, knowing your brand, having a content strategy, telling stories, being out there networking with people, that's going to help you with curating the right ideas and topics for stories and TEDx talks that you could pitch. My thought leadership brand model is really important. I mean, it starts with mindset and confidence, and you have to build storytelling, speaking, communication skills. You have to have content strategy and digital presence. You have to build meaningful relationships, and you have to have personal branding. These are the 5 essence of thought leadership. This is my model that I use. And personal branding can feed back into better mindset, better storytelling, better content, better relationships. And then essentially what we give you from a thought leadership perspective, you get knowledge and strategies, community and coaching. And when you have that, then you build clarity, consistency, and confidence. And that's how you level up your thought leadership brand. This is my model. Every single one of us needs one of these things, or maybe many of these things, or can do better in some of these things. Everything I do, from speaking, coaching, training, everything, it's all about this. And now TEDx is my flagship because I believe that TEDx is a flagship to help build this all up. But most people who do TEDx also want to help with personal brand. They also want to have content strategy. They also want to do more speaking. Bonus number 6 is start your own TEDx event, guys. You form a committee of 3 to 5 people. You run a TEDx event. You can't speak that year, but you can speak next year, right? Because if you build the team and you built the mentors, now you have the core 3 to 5 people, and you have a team of 20 volunteers, and that you run a great event. They will let you do a TEDx talk the year after. That's a long game, right? Like I try to get people a TEDx talk in 3 to 9 months. But yeah, that's a 1.5 to 2 year game, but you could do that. So some final thoughts before we get to Q&A. Again, TEDx is a huge branding opportunity, strong marketing material. We want that video. Chance to make the TED.com page. Where to start? Find the location, curate a very specific idea and topic, find the best themes, connect the organizers, determine your target, TEDx events, create a nomination plan. Know the culture. Simple, clear, relevant, enjoyable, original. Tell a story, your way, your message with your audience. And of course, how to make them want you. Know the culture, create the idea, connections, follow up, be accessible, build a huge thought leadership brand. Okay. And remember, the most important part of the TEDx journey is when you think about what you're crafting and also what you're pitching as a TEDx application, how do you make them feel? So there was one about, the aging parent thing. I mean, if you pitch in a way that makes them feel really, really moved by what you're saying, and then they want to meet you and they want to speak to you and they want to have you on their stage, that's how you're going to make them feel. And everyone needs a coach. I have coaches for my nutrition and health. I have coaching for my business. And a coach helps you be accountable, helps you 10x your results, helps you stay focused. That's what coaching is all about. So if you're ready to start, I'm happy to answer your questions. I do a little gift for you guys. This is a free TEDx idea template. It's basically a template that helps you turn your story into a TEDx idea. So you can download this, click the QR code. It's free. You can take a look at that and see how it helps you. Because Sarah's like, how do you narrow down your topic? Well, this is a good starting point. I'll tell you more about that in the Q&A, but this is a good starting point for sure. Okay. And of course, you can all book a call with me too afterwards and chat with me and tell me your story and what you're working on and how you want to do it. And I'm happy to tell you more about what I'm up to. I do.
That's it for this episode. If it gave you one useful idea, share it with someone who needs it, and follow the show so the next one finds you. I'll see you next time on The Power of Connection.